You have a lot of grateful folks there. We were given a legislative update in government relations from Jennifer McIntyre, and of course, a lot of the discussion, not only at the board of directors, but in workshops that followed at the AGM, we discussed Bill 98, the Better Schools and Student Outcomes Act. You know, that's a very large and complex bill, and we still haven't got all the information from it, but it was introduced on April 17th, and I mentioned it a little before, but the bill proposes changes to the Early Childhood Educators Act 2007, the Education Act itself, our duties, parameters around the job of Director of Education. It suggests changes to the Ontario College of Teachers Act. It's quite wide ranging, so I really strongly suggest, you know, I mean, even it's a bit of a cure for insomnia, but you know, have a look at that, because we are going to be discussing this and pulling it apart over this next year, because there's just so many unanswered questions, and it affects our duties and our power as locally elected advocates for public education. Oh, and we did, OPSPA did, of course, put an initial statement in that. And we did a very extensive consultation and advocacy plan that involved senior staff, the policy development and education program work groups, both of us. We were in constant meetings, and we got a response in, and our president, Kathy Abraham, was able to present it at Queen's Park and very successfully. So we were happy about that. The association is going to be following up regarding some upcoming consultations on joint use of schools and apprenticeship pathways, as well as other areas of concern related to the bill, including the role and the responsibility of integrity commissioners in school boards. There's no real parameters around the certification or the qualifications of integrity commissioner. You can kind of just call yourself one, and you are one. So to have somebody who has the power to overturn publicly elected folks' decisions and different things, it's hard to, you know, we can't think of any other level of government that would have something like that would, you know, not have any parameters around it. We had a successful Take Your MPP to School Day. While I will say that maybe not locally, provincially we did. About 50 MPPs participated in the event province-wide, and some going into schools for the very first time. So that's always a good thing. We are undertaking a brand refresh. We have a new executive director, and we are going to be looking at that as a long-term project with a goal of completion within the next year. Please follow on the website OPSPA in the Media, the OPSPA Connects blog, and the whole website, because it has all of our submissions that we've sent to the government. And if sometimes, you know, we can coattail on some of the words, you know, we don't have to wordsmith everything. We've had a lot of consultation in our submissions, and sometimes Greater Essex is, you know, in complete alignment. So it's good to look at those submissions that OPSPA has made, and they're under advocacy and action page. Of course, you know, school boards are moving forward, finalizing their budget to meet the ministry's end of June deadline. Provincially, most boards are experiencing funding pressures from underfunded benchmarks. This is a theme. We've seen it. We've heard it today. We are going to be living with this. About 1/3 of school boards have preliminarily indicated they are in a deficit situation. And there may be actually more, because some folks honestly didn't know exactly what the situation was, but at least 1/3. That's a lot. So at the board of directors, we passed the following motion. It was actually my initial motion, and it got amended and amended and amended, so it's a little watered down, but here it is. That the Ontario Public School Boards Association advocate to the Ministry of Education to address the deficits in funding that support the delivery of programs affecting student success and well-being. So it's sort of motherhood and apple pie, but it is a commitment that we're not going to give up on this, that we're all really struggling. There were some cuts that were just, you know, horrendous. So, you know, we're going to be advocating hard and strong. So a summary of the important B and SB memos were given the new ones since the last Board of Directors meeting in February. And they can also be accessed. So if you ever hear about a memo or whatever and you want to see the details of it, just go to the OPSPA website, and they'll give you the link to the Ministry of Finance website. Big news about the completion of Beyond Knowledge. We wanted to know, coming out of the pandemic, knowing that we have a lot of challenges that are manifesting in our schools, we undertook this project, and it's been just overwhelmingly positively adopted. Beyond Knowledge, Preparing Students for an Uncertain Future, Emerging Vision and Priorities, a discussion paper. This is Ontario's Education Partner discussion paper. And it's really, really good and well-researched, and if you want to see the literature review, etc., it's all in there. So I suggest getting that. Big news, and Superintendent Howitt actually got her own set. As you requested. French is a second language, or as an additional language. OPSPA, on behalf of CSBA, takes the leadership on some issues across the country, copyright being one, Indigenous education being another. French as a second language is another area that school boards across Canada look to Ontario to take a lead in and research, etc. So these resources are phenomenal. They, again, have been really well received. French as a second language for school administrators, From Awareness to Action. Compendium of evidence-informed strategies and practices to support school administrators with FSL programs. French language proficiency assessment for French as a second language teaching. This is a toolkit and resources guide. Mobilizing knowledge from the FSL Labor Market Partnership and FSL Teacher Recruitment Guide for English language school boards. Like, that's a really great spectrum of, looking at FSL. It's a problem, a real challenge across the country, trying to get and attract and recruit and retain folks in every discipline who have French qualifications and have them in our schools. The demand is high and the supply is low. So that's a really great resource that OPSPA now has. The Indigenous Education Council met and updates were given. You can imagine, as we talked about earlier in our budget discussion, what the Indigenous Trustees Council felt about the cuts to Indigenous education. They were really alarmed. So we had a discussion about that, and we're going to be, we're not going to be letting go of that one. I know that. The Black Trustees Caucus is new to OPSPA, and they are going to have their own AGM, and a chair and a vice chair will be chosen, but it's a great start, and some really rich discussion happened, and they had a meeting also at the AGM. The elections, as I said, were held. There weren't any big changes, none to the executive, I don't think. Maybe the Northern Board. Yeah, Northern Board has Cheryl Evans back on. We also talked about our work with the Ontario Human Rights Commission. And OPSPA awards were given out, of course. They were submissions. There was a committee that determined lots of different awards, and we had a great President's Dinner. And our multi-year strategic plan, the OPSPA one, was given, and the priorities are student success, equity, and well-being, local school board governance, and maintaining it. In other words, Bill 98 threatens some of that, so student success, equity, and well-being, local school board governance, truth and reconciliation, and effective relationships and sustainable resourcing. So that's it. And the wrap-up is the Canadian School Board Association will be meeting the Congress and the National Trustees Gathering on Indigenous Education. It's being held July 3rd to the 5th in Banff. Registration is open, but good luck finding a place to stay. And that ends my report. Thanks.